What is good, my people? How y'all doing? How y'all doing? We are back with another Twitter review conversation, and this one's going to be interesting because it's me talking to another Bleach guy, and this doesn't always happen. So it's a rare thing that I thought I'd share with you guys today. The discussion is whether or not Ulquiorra is stronger than Starrk, based on Ulquiorra having transcended spiritual pressure. That's the conversation. And so let's get into it. Today we'll be featuring Schiffer. That's what he goes by, Schiffer. And as you can all see, he is the D1 Ulquiorra dick muncher. His words, not mine. This will be prevalent in the conversation. Not in the conversation, but in hindsight, this will be prevalent because, yeah, we'll get into it. So yeah, let's start off with his thread. So he says, been seeing too much Ulquiorra slander recently, so I'm making a short thread. How Ulquiorra has transcended Reiatsu. A thread. Cool, let's get it. So, in Bleach, some characters possess what we refer to as transcendent Reiatsu, i.e. Ichigo, Aizen, Yamamoto, Yuha, and Shunsui. In this thread, I will not only explain and elaborate on what my interpretation of transcendent Reiatsu is, but why Ulquiorra has it. Cool. First, I will establish what exactly is Transcendent Reiatsu. Transcendent Reiatsu is what happens to a character when they reach a certain level of power. This power causes them to transcend the likes of Soul Reapers and Hollows and enter a higher dimensional existence. This state of being is achieved by several characters, most notably Aizen and Ichigo, and usually has several tails. I'll go over the two tails that I have picked up on. So this is the scan he uses for it. Well, I don't really gotta read this. You guys already know this, plus you can read it yourself. So, alright. So the first tail is a different feeling from regular Reiatsu. The second tail is a different look to said Reiatsu. So we have a feeling and we have a look. This is going to be important. Remember this. We have a feeling of Reiatsu being different and a look of Reiatsu being different. Okay. So the first one is rather simple to explain. Beings that possess transcendent Reiatsu will have their Reiatsu emit. Okay, yeah, once again, spelling error. Beings that possess transcendent Reiatsu will have their Reiatsu emit a different feeling than that of regular Reiatsu. For example, Yamamoto's Bankai makes everything feel hot. Remember that too, that's important. Yamamoto's Bankai makes everything feel hot. Ichigo's Reiatsu can't be felt. And most importantly, Shunsui's Bankai makes everyone cold and scared. All these characters should have transcendent Reiatsu based on this fact. Now here's the thing, I don't necessarily agree with all this stuff, but I'm gonna take it as true for the sake of having the conversation, if that makes sense. So yeah, you guys can see these scans if you want to. I'll leave it here, or you can just stop, pause, and read. Alright, so the second part of this is harder to explain. Typically, Reiatsu in Bleach has a very normal look to it, as in it looks like typical anime energy aura around people. However, beings with transcendent Reiatsu have a different look to their Reiatsu, which is character dependent. Then we have examples of Kenpachi having the demon Reiatsu and Ichigo having looks like blue particles for his Reiatsu. For Yamamoto, his Bankai emits, oh my god. See, I'm sorry, guys. I'm getting frustrated. He keeps saying admits, and this just kind of tells you the level of person you're dealing with. This is not the first time he's made this mistake. All right, we've called him again. For Yamamoto, he emits a flame-like aura around him. That even gets mistaken for actual flames. For Shunsui, his Reiatsu darkens the sky, or makes everything a yellowish hue depending on the anime or manga. And Yuha's Reiatsu is so strong that it lets off its own type of creature pretty much, that very distinctly does not look like any normal type of Reiatsu. So yeah, we're going through the different looks of Reiatsu and feelings, Now that I've established what transcendent Reiatsu is, you may see where I'm going with this. Ulquiorra's Reiatsu has both of the traits that are shown in transcendent Reiatsu. Firstly, for the feeling, Ulquiorra's distinct feeling for his transcendent Reiatsu is equated to an ocean by Ishida, being thick and heavy and very clearly is causing panic and despair amongst Ichigo and his friends. What is this? Is it spiritual energy? Yada yada yada. It's so thick it feels like an ocean. Yes, we get it. And when Ulquiorra unleashes his first Resurrection, we can see something similar to raindrops falling from the sky from him. This would fit in with what the theme of an ocean of despair, as I will call it. This would fit in with his theme of an ocean of despair, as I will call it. Okay. With Ulquiorra possessing both of the traits that are shown within characters with Transcendent Reiatsu, I think it is safe to say that Ulquiorra possesses it as well. Now to address the elephant in the room. Yes, this does further prove that Ulquiorra is stronger than Starrk. Neither Starrk nor any other Espada possesses any of these qualities, which would make Ulquiorra far stronger than the rest of them. Cool. So however you guys feel about the thread, that's on you. But we're going to get into the conversation that Ab-Stract has with this individual. So let's go to that. Okay, so mind you guys, and I don't like when this happens, but the conversation is kind of scattered because there's different talking points and stuff like that. So I'm going to try my best to keep this as linear as possible without like going either forward in the conversation or backwards in the conversation. I'm going to try my best. But anyways, so we get to the end of the thread and I say, enjoyed the thread, but I disagree with the conclusion. I don't think having Transcendent Reiatsu makes you objectively stronger than those who don't. And I should say who don't or have shown they don't, right? That's what I should say. Or else you would have to argue Vasto Ichigo has it as well. Then I would ask you, based on this thread, which I also didn't say, but this would be implied. Then I would ask you where the evidence for his would be at. Where's the evidence for his? Right? His response to this is his evidence would literally just be the fact he slams Ulquiorra. That's a fairly safe conclusion. So yeah, he says his evidence would literally just be the fact he slams Ulquiorra. That's a fairly safe conclusion. I say, so the evidence isn't anything you've previously stated. It's now being able to defeat someone with Transcendent Reiatsu means that that individual has it as well. So he's foregoing it looks different, it feels different. Now, all of a sudden, if you can beat someone with Transcendent Reiatsu, well then you must have it as well. Then I say, this would intimate that Ulquiorra could only lose to Ichigo at this specific time because no other person was transcendent, right? And let's remember, based on his thread, who did he say was transcendent, right? Oh, good. I even say right here, Yama doesn't enter transcendence until Bankai. So he's saying full power Ulquiorra could beat Yamamoto. Aizen doesn't enter transcendent form until he evolves. He's saying full power Ulquiorra could beat Aizen. And Shunsui doesn't enter quote unquote transcendence until he gets his Bankai. So he's saying Ulquiorra could beat Shunsui. Yeah. So I'll just read the whole thing now that we got the context out the way. Yama doesn't enter Transcendence until Bankai, Aizen doesn't until his evolutions, and Shunsui doesn't until Bankai. But if you're saying Ulquiorra already had it, he would be able to beat all these people unless they were at full power. Is this correct? This is the question I'm posing him, and I really don't like when people don't answer the questions that I pose to them because there's a reason I'm asking these questions. So his response to what I just said is, so much wrong here. Number one, several other characters were transcendent at the time. You already listed some. That has nothing to do with what I just said at all. Number two, Shunsui only being transcendent in Bankai changes absolutely nothing about the argument. Once again, literally has nothing to do with what I said of whether or not he's in Bankai now. We're establishing if Ulquiorra can beat these people while they're not at their most powerful. That's what we're trying to establish here. So I don't know why he's like just firing off the hip with this stuff. Number three, Yama is never going all out in Shikai, so we don't know if he's transcended or not. Oh, hold up now. That's an important one. Yama is never going all out in Shikai, so we don't know if he's transcended or not. We're gonna come back to that. We're gonna get that. So I tell him, you didn't really address my question, and I'm only going off of what you stated in your thread. You said Yama was transcended in Bankai because he showed signs of being so. So we don't need to speculate if he is in Shikai because he didn't display a sign he was. Remember, the signs was a feeling and a look. That's what we're going off of if we're going to determine someone is transcendent or not. I mean, according to his purview, mind you. I'm accepting everything he's saying. I'm accepting everything he's saying as the basis of true to have the conversation. So in his purview, you're looking for a feeling and a change, right? But he's right now saying we don't know if Yama in base or in Shikai is transcendent. Well, my God, did anyone denote a feeling or a change that would suggest that he is? No? Well, then, okay, we can presume that he's not. But that's the first half of the conversation, and it gets better. We're going to keep going, though. So this is the next portion of his response. So he posted this response, so much wrong here, and then I answered the first half of that. This is the second part of his response that creates a whole new thread, basically. So he says, we'll do it like this. In addition to what he said, so much wrong here. Several other characters were transcendent at the time, yada, yada, yada. Shinsuke only being transcendent in Bankai changes absolutely nothing. Yama is never going all out in Shikai, so we don't know if he's transcendent or not. Cool. So he says that, and in addition to that, he says this. And we know that characters who are purposely lowering themselves can interact with lower non-transcendent beings. So there's no reason to suspect Yama isn't transcendent in base. There's no reason to suspect Yama isn't transcendent in base. Cool. I respond. Going off of your thread, what signs does he give us to let us know he's transcendent in any other form except his Bankai? That is a reasonable question, right? Going off of the thread that you made, the stipulations that you presented, what would let us know he's transcendent in any other form except Bankai? And unless you're arguing Aizen was also transcendent in base, he shouldn't have been able to injure a transcendent Yama. And then I end with, is this correct? Is this correct is going to be my new thing for all of 2025. At the end of everything, if I have enough characters, I'm going to put, is this correct? It's a trolling tactic and it's fun. So let's move on. He says, appeal to ignorance. You don't need direct proof of him being transcendent in base for the assumption to be correct. Now, initially, this kind of takes me back because I don't know if he's doing an appeal to ignorance or he's saying I'm doing an appeal to ignorance. Not going to lie, because it literally could be both. So I say, are you saying you're making an appeal to ignorance? And if you're not, and if you aren't, do you not see what you just stated is an actual appeal to ignorance? Let's look at that again. He says, you don't need direct proof of him being transcendent in base for the assumption to be true. That is literally appealing to your ignorance, but we're going to get to that anyway. Then I say, also, if we're just assuming he's transcendent in base, why make a whole thread detailing signs of transcendency? It literally works against itself. So then he tells me, debating 101. If someone says a logical fallacy by name, they're saying you're using it. Then his other response is, because this is about specifically defining what it is and talking about an entirely separate character, please track. He tells me to track. This is going to get funny, though. He tells me to track. So I respond with, it was hard to tell seeing as how you literally made the appeal to ignorance in the same breath you accused me of it. And we just analyzed that he did. He said you don't need proof or evidence for it not to be. He said you don't need proof or evidence and it can still be true. That would literally. So yeah, I'm only going by the information you provided in your thread. Any appeals to ignorance would be on your end unless you'd like to amend what you've already stated. So if he wants to fix anything he said in his thread, then we could, get rid of these accusations and stuff like that. But if you don't want to do that, then all appeals to ignorance would be coming from what you said, because I'm using the knowledge in your thread. Let me get some water real quick. Okay. He says, I already gave you evidence that he's transcendent in Bankai. There's a difference from arguing from zero likelihood and arguing from a known. I don't see how it's an appeal to ignorance to think Yama is transcendent when there's other transcendent characters he's stronger than, LOL. So I say, oh, and it was an appeal to, okay, so wait, there's probably two responses down here. Anyways, I state why it's an appeal to ignorance. I say what I said, basically. It was an appeal to ignorance because you laid out the guidelines for transcendence, which Yama did fit in Bankai, right? Then just said, oh, well, he could be transcendent in base too. We just don't know. And that was literally appealing to his own ignorance. And also, there's no evidence that he is transcendent in base going off of the thread and scans that he sent and created. So I don't know why he would be presuming he's transcendent in base when he was only saying he was transcendent in Bankai. That has its own issue. He says, still ducking the second part of the reply, I'll give you one full response. I'll give you one full reason and be done with this debate since you haven't provided anything meaningful to correct and have been dragging side tangents this whole time. All right. This conversation comes later, though, but I'll just read it now. I say, what part of the reply am I missing? I'll address it. And this isn't a tangent. It's completely related. It's completely related to Ulquiorra and Starrk. It just implicates other characters as well. Because when having a conversation about transcendence, you got to talk about the character you think is transcendence, who they interacted with, and then all the characters around them that may or may not be on that level, and then what that means for the entire series. So you can't just talk about two characters in a vacuum. It literally wouldn't make sense. You have to compare them to what we've seen, potential things, and things we haven't seen. There's a lot that goes into it. So yeah, why did I say this? What did he say to this? Okay, yeah, he said, he said, I already gave you evidence that he's transcendent in Bankai. There's a difference from arguing from zero likelihood and arguing from a known. Cool. So he did give us evidence he was transcendent in Bankai, right? So my response is Bankai isn't base, just like how Shikai isn't Bankai. These states vary anywhere from 5 to 10 times in power. So to assume a transcendent being in Bankai is still transcendent is transcendent in base would be wrong because the massive power gap between the two is incorrect. Now let's analyze, not even analyze. Is what I said fair based on what he said? Is what I said in error in any way? Let's look at that again. I already gave you evidence that he's transcendent in Bankai. There's a difference from arguing from zero likelihood and arguing from a known. All right. So yeah, we know that he's transcendent in Bankai based on your thread, right? So that's established. So we have there is no zero likelihood for that. But when you want to postulate that, okay, cool, he's transcendent in this state, he must be or might be transcendent in this other state. When you haven't shown any proof or evidence for that, that's where the issue would be. And like I said, Bankai is a 5 to 10 times power difference. So the power is what's making the person transcendent or not. Losing 5 to 10% of that, 5 to 10 times of that power would also make them not transcendent or not in a transcendent state anymore. I hope this makes sense. Because his response to what I just said is I just completely strawmanned his argument. And on top of that, I ignored the second part of his reply. I say, please detail the straw man. And then I let him know the second response is up. So we're going to go back because this argument is a different one. Let's go again. Okay. Okay, so that was that whole conversation. It's still all one, and I'm trying to make this as linear as possible, guys, but it's a little hard. So let's go to this one. Appeal to ignorance. Going off your thread. Okay, yeah, so I say, going off of your thread, what signs does he give us to let us know he's transcendent in any other form except Bankai? And unless you're arguing Aizen was also transcendent in base, he shouldn't have been able to injure a transcendent Yama. I asked, is this correct? He says it's an appeal to ignorance. We went over that part. And then he says, on top of that, we know certain characters that are transcendent that are weaker than Yamamoto. For example, unsealed base Kampachi should roughly be equal to Vasto, Ichigo, and Yamamoto gaps both in base. That's a lot. I don't. Yeah. So my response to that is, then that would also mean that people like base Aizen and base Yama who aren't confirmed to be transcendent would beat transcendent people like Ulquiorra and Vasto Ichi, meaning transcendence doesn't make you objectively stronger than those who aren't. Is this correct? Let's go over that again. So I say, then people like base Aizen and base Yama who aren't confirmed to be transcendent, because this is true. They're not confirmed to be transcendent. They would beat people who are transcendent, like Ulquiorra and Vasto Lord Ichigo. Mind you, this is all his purview. I don't believe this stuff, but for the sake of the conversation, I'm willing to accept it. So, that would mean transcendence doesn't make you objectively stronger than those who aren't. Is this correct? Now, it's a little hard to follow what I'm doing, but I'll give you guys, well, no, you'll see it in the video. So you'll see it at the end. His response to that is, base Aizen isn't transcendent until he has the Hogyoku. But there's no reason to doubt base Yama isn't transcendent, especially since a fully fused Hogyoku Aizen didn't step in to kill Yama when he was in base. Okay, so I'm getting his full argument, and you guys will kind of see what I'm doing once I execute it. I'm getting his full argument right now, though. And I say, I go back to what I said in the beginning. In the beginning, I said, I don't think having transcendent Reiatsu makes you objectively stronger than those that don't have it. And your retort was that Vasto Ichigo had it. So what about my initial claim? Does having it make you objectively stronger than those that don't? Because this is going to tell us whether or not Starrk is stronger than Ulquiorra. Can you answer this question? He goes on to tell me, well, your initial question is retarded because it's directly stated that if you have transcendent Reiatsu, you're stronger than anyone who doesn't. Laugh my ass off. Try reading the series. Schiffer, let me tell you something. I know more about Bleach than you. I'm smarter than you. I debate better than you. And I know how to use the word emit and not admit. Okay? So, that's number one. Now watch this. When did Aizen attain transcendence? Right? And you'll see you guys will see what I'm doing here. And it doesn't end off being the payoff that I think it will be for one reason. We'll get to that, and it's kind of funny. But when did Aizen attain transcendence? Do we know why this question is important? Because let's remember something. Well, no, we'll just go through it. It's okay. It's okay. And I'm sorry if it feels like I keep going back and forth, but I have so many thoughts in my mind, it's sometimes hard to organize them. So his answer to my question of when did Aizen attain transcendence, he's just posting scans. All right? He's just posting scans. It's not a direct answer, but what he's implying is when Aizen said he transcended, or Butterfly Aizen. But I need an exact answer for what I'm saying to work. So I say, let me be more clear. At what stage did he first attain transcendence? I'd like you to state it. He says it's irrelevant. This has nothing to do with the point he's making. Laugh my ass off. So I'll give you guys the answer. The first point where we find out that Aizen is transcending or transcendent is when Isshin Kurosaki hits him with a Getsuga Tensho to the face. And then he states, I can't feel Aizen's power, basically. It feels like we're swinging at nothing. That's when he first attains transcendence. Right? So let's get into my response. Anyway, guys, according to Schiffer, because he didn't answer the question, transcendent Reiatsu makes you objectively stronger than anyone without it. I'll say that again. Transcendent Reiatsu makes you objectively stronger than anyone without it. So this would mean second release Ulquiorra by proxy, the Vasto Lorde who beat him were stronger than Shikai Aizen because Aizen at the time did not attain transcendence. Now, I shouldn't have to tell any of you that no version of Ulquiorra can beat Aizen at any form of Aizen. I shouldn't have to tell you guys this. I shouldn't have to tell him this, but guess what, guys? We can't forget who we're dealing with. This is the D1 Ulquiorra Dick Muncher. So when he says things out of pocket like this, when he makes these assertions and claims, we have to remember who we're talking about. This is the D1 Ulquiorra Dick Muncher, his words, not mine. So yeah. I then go on to say, I hope we can all see that doesn't make sense. What's more likely is that there are levels to transcendence as described by Aizen. And Ulquiorra did reach a level, however, that level is surpassed by people stronger than Ulquiorra that are not transcendent at their level of power. I hope that makes sense. I'll explain it. Let's say you have, we'll do it like this. This will be a great example. Let's say you have a track runner, right? Let's say the fastest time for the 100-meter dash is 12 seconds. Then let's say only one person has managed to beat that 12 seconds, and he beats it by 4 whole seconds. So now the fastest time is 8 seconds in the 100-meter dash. Let's say it takes years for people to even get close to that. You could say the person who beat that record or set that record is a transcendent, not being per se, but you can say he's transcended, as in he's gone far beyond anything that anyone else has been able to do. You can say he is transcended. Then let's say after years, more people start to encroach and even beat or match his time, right? So we have 12 seconds going down to 8 seconds, and we have more people breaking into that 8-second barrier. Guess what happens to the transcendent guy now? He now becomes pretty normal because the standard has changed, right? Then let's say a couple of years later after this, the time is broken again. And that 8 seconds turns to 6 seconds. Or no, let's even do it better. That 8 seconds turns to 4 seconds. Imagine that. Someone ran a 100-meter dash in 4 seconds. Can you guess what they'll say about the 8-second time? They're damn sure not going to call it transcendent. Not when 4 seconds exists. So that's what I mean by that, right? Let's read it again with that full context in mind. I hope you can all see that doesn't make sense. What's more likely is that these are levels. What's more likely is that there are levels to transcendence as described by Aizen. And Ulquiorra did reach a level. However, that level is surpassed by people stronger than Ulquiorra that are not transcendent at their level. Because there's a difference between running a 100-meter dash in 12 seconds versus 8 seconds versus 4 seconds versus 2 seconds, right? We're not going to say that the person who ran it in 6 seconds isn't transcendent. We're not going to say that. They're good for that level. They're above everyone who runs it slower than that, but they're not 2 seconds, right? I hope this is making sense. I really hope this is making sense. But apparently the Schiffer, the number 1 D rider, doesn't make sense. This doesn't make any sense. How would someone be stronger than someone who's transcendent yet not be transcendent? When Aizen himself confirms you have to be transcendent to interact with someone else's transcendence. Yo, if these guys argued and listened as much as they argued and responded, I promise you, I would not always look so good in these interactions. I promise you I would not look so good. But these guys argue and respond to just be right and not to consider what the other person is saying. I don't make that mistake, which is why I'll never look crazy in a thread. You'll never find a thread of me looking crazy because I'll always argue to first understand, and then I'll argue to debate. Right? If I already understand it, if I already understand what's being said, which is why I ask questions. This is why I ask the question that I ask. If I already understand it, then I have no reason to not go, oh, don't hit that. Where we go? Okay. Anyways, y'all get the point. So I say, it makes perfect sense. You're familiar with tiering systems, right? You can be transcendent for where you are, as I just described, in a class above everyone below you, like I just described. But when you start going up, that word transcendent starts to take on a new meaning, and suddenly you're not so transcendent. Aizen says as much. And what I mean by Aizen says as much is, let's see if we can find a panel. Yeah. Having evolved to a plane beyond Soul Reapers, just as 2-dimensional entities cannot interfere with 3-dimensional entities, unless I purposely lower my level to be allowed to be interfered with, my spirit energy cannot be sensed by Soul Reapers or humans. And, oh yeah, could he be on an even higher plane than I am? So let me ask you guys this. Did I ever say Aizen or anyone wasn't transcendent? Did I ever say they weren't transcendent? Or did I say the meaning of transcendent might change once you start talking about higher levels of transcendency? He can't seem to understand this. Don't understand why. He can't seem to understand this. And I would have loved to gave him the example I gave you guys, but there's literally not enough characters, and I don't think people have the attention span to understand, comprehend, and listen to a explanation like that. So yeah, it makes perfect sense. If you're familiar with tiering systems, you can be transcendent for where you are in a class above everyone else, but when you start going up, that word transcendent starts to take on a new meaning because there are people who exist higher than you. This doesn't mean you're not transcendent, you're just not on their level of transcendent, right? Going back to the 100-meter dash, you're still above the person who can run it in 8 seconds, right? You're just not above the nigga that can run it in 6. I'm sorry, in 2. In 2. Because we had 12, 8, 6, 2. So yeah, there will always be higher levels to reach, right? So literally, no, he doesn't. A higher level of transcendence is a thing, but you're still transcendent. But you're still transcendent if you're at that tier. Never said. I'm not sure what you're disagreeing to. I literally said that you can be transcendent, and there still be people in a class above you. I don't understand why he doesn't comprehend this concept. Yes, but your argument is that those people that in a class above aren't transcendent, which is false. So he's saying my argument is that the people in a class above the people that are transcendent aren't transcendent, and that's false. So I say, no offense, because at this point, like, this is why it's like hard talking to other Bleach creators. Because, anyways, I say, no offense. You're either misinterpreting something or misreading something. Please read it to understand first, not to argue. I said they wouldn't be transcendent for the level that they are. Reason being because there exist higher tiers of power that makes their power look normal. I hope all this is making sense to you guys. I really do. Now, there's another part of the conversation where it was really just, you could call it side tangents, but they weren't really side tangents. They were very relevant to the conversation. I want to find that stuff. Let's see if we can. All right, let's see what we had here. Oh, right. Fuck. All right, so guys. The reason why, if you guys remember, I said I had a watch this moment, right? Yeah, here we go. Now watch this. When did Aizen attain transcendence? And if you guys remember, he answered with panels, basically. So, the big payoff for what I was doing, the big payoff for why I asked this whole question was because I was going to say, and I already said this, but I was going to say, if Ulquiorra is transcendent Reiatsu, and transcendent Reiatsu can only be combated with other transcendent Reiatsu, then he would be saying, this is a if then therefore statement. If transcendent Reiatsu makes you stronger than anyone that doesn't have it, then therefore anyone that doesn't have it is weaker. If then therefore. So that would mean Aizen did not have transcendent Reiatsu at that level. Yamamoto wasn't proven to have transcendent Reiatsu at that level, so he would be saying Ulquiorra in his final release is stronger than both of these entities. That was the big payoff for all this. So what was funny, and I'm not gonna lie, this was kind of funny. I said, what did he say first? So I say, this would mean second release Ulquiorra and by proxy Vasalord who beat him were stronger than Shikai Aizen. He says literally yes. Aizen and base and Shikai is like moon level. You want to know who has a moon level feat? And then we get the Lanza del Rampago. Now, this is its own conversation. Moon level? I don't know about all that at this time. I'm not here to debate that though. So here we have it, right? And let's not be surprised on why he thinks this. Again, we're dealing with the D1 Ulquiorra Dick Muncher. I'm not surprised he thinks second release Ulquiorra is stronger than Aizen. He says, you're acting like this is some crazy far-fetched idea. Like Kubo didn't literally confirm that Aizen didn't capture Starrk earlier because he was worried about his high Reiatsu. Well, actually, you're incorrect. He captured Starrk later because he was worried about his high Reiatsu, not earlier. And so you really do believe second release Ulquiorra is stronger than Shikai Aizen. You can't make this shit up, guys. This is the difference between a fanatic and a fan of someone. A fan is able to admit when narrative has them wrong. A fan is able to admit when scaling has them wrong. A fanatic doesn't care about any of that stuff. A fanatic will just say things that suit and serve their agenda. So yeah, you believe second release is stronger than Shikai Aizen. Like, yes, once again, Aizen was worried about base Starrk. Yeah, and Starrk isn't Ulquiorra, laughing my ass off. But okay, that's all I wanted to discuss. Like I said, I did enjoy the thread, but I'm definitely making a clip out of you. Because ain't no way you can't be a real person. Then he says, I lost this conversation. I had no good counterpoints and misunderstood literally everything at every turn. Well, we'll leave that up to you guys. What do you guys think about this conversation? Did I miss everything? Did I not have any good counterpoints? Is he correct? Is Ulquiorra stronger than base Aizen? Is there anyone that genuinely thinks Ulquiorra is stronger than base Aizen? That's hilarious anyway. But yeah, that's the conversation. That was me and a Bleach guy. I want to call these guys content creators, but they're not content creators, so I'll just say Bleach guy. But yeah, be on the lookout for, no, I'm just playing with y'all. We're going to be starting the lives pretty soon. I've just been trying to think of a day to do it, a day and a time to do it. So yeah, but let me know what you guys think about that conversation. I thought it was pretty interesting. And yeah.